Digital ladies breaking the chain, rising in crypto, we're changing the game. Crypto frontier, we're claiming our space. Not your keys, not your crypto, know your place. Unscripted, we're bold, we're free. Melissa, Keda, Lady K, and Digital, come ride this wave. Digital wealth, we're here to pay.
Crypto nights, we're lighting the spark. As we ignite now, we're setting the mark.
Safety first, we're keeping it tight. Blockchain power, we're shining the light. Unscripted, we're bold, we're free. Melissa, Keda, Lady K, and Digital, come ride this wave.
Welcome to Digital Ladies Unscripted. I'm Melissa, and I'm joined by my lovely co-hosts, Keda, Lady K, and Opti. How are you doing this evening, ladies?
Excellent.
I want to thank those of you who are tuning in already. Definitely a shout out to Silver Days, who's always in the house, number one, first, right out the gate. Who else do we got in here, Keda?
Oh my goodness, we have Vegas Lamb is in the house, and we've been talking with Vegas Lamb for the last couple of weeks, so it's super excited to have him here. We also have Miss Stephanie, Miss Gone Rogue, XRP Papa, who is in the house, as well as K Buddy, Miss Stephanie, and Thunderbird World Media.
Ooh, welcome, guys. Well, thank you guys for coming. Please share this out. I'm glad to see people joining. I think there'll be more folks joining here quickly, I hope, because this is sure to be an important and empowering conversation tonight. For those of you who don't know, on April 3rd, just a few days ago, CRS Legal Sidebar, that is a Congressional Research Service report. It was prepared specifically for members and committees of Congress. It was released entitled SEC Issues Crypto Guidance as Congress Considers Market Structure Legislation. Now, this report dives into the guidance that the Securities and Exchange Commission issued on March 17th of 2026. And importantly, this new guidance replaces the older and much more confusing 2019 staff guidance that so many projects have been struggling with. So the SEC, and together with the CFTC, has now given us a much clearer framework for how federal security laws apply to different types of crypto assets and activities. And tonight, we're going to attempt to break it down in plain English, no legalese, no overwhelming jargon, so that everyone watching can understand what this actually means for tokens, NFTs, and the projects that we all care about. We're going to walk through the brand new 5-category taxonomy that the SEC introduced, looking at real examples, talk about direct impact that this guidance has on the market, and then we'll go through a practical checklist of questions that you can ask about your own project to figure out which bucket your project likely falls into. And so, in my opinion, this is exciting stuff because, in my opinion, it brings real clarity and, for many legitimate projects, a much safer path forward. So, all of you in the audience, grab your notepad, think about your questions, get comfortable. We're going to dive in. If you do have any questions, please put them in all caps, and we'll do our best. But this is a packed show. So if we don't get to your questions, please join us in the After Dark space at 10:10 on X. And I did post the article or the guidance that they sent to Congress on April 3rd. I posted that in our live chat feed there for those of you who want to take a look at it. But like I said, guys, on March 17th, they issued this guidance that addressed the application of federal security laws to certain kinds of crypto assets and crypto activities. And then the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, they indicated that its staff is going to administer the Commodity Exchange Act, the CEA, in a manner that's consistent with this guidance. So this legal sidebar provides background related to the guidance. It reviews all the key components of the guidance that they had, and it discusses issues that may be of interest to Congress, which is considering legislation at this time that aims to clarify the respective jurisdictions of the SEC and the CFTC over crypto markets. Before I read the first text, I want to get the vibe of how you guys are feeling about this. Just even hearing about it. Any thoughts on the importance of this right now coming out?
I think it's super important. I think that there's been a lot of things that have been put out into the stratosphere concerning what these assets are and how we should move with them. And one of the things that hasn't come has been clarity on just the actual name of what the actual assets are and how they can be used. So I think this is really important for people to kind of start to put their mind around what these assets are called, right? Because we are always going to hear the words cryptocurrencies, but when we start talking about digital commodities and digital securities, and these are things that we need to really be understanding these names, what they are, and what the actual rules are for these particular assets, just so that we know what the playing field looks like and how we should move with them.
Amen to that. Lady K?
Oh, we've been asking for guidance forever, right? I mean, we being the industry as a whole. I do want to remind people though that like, although this is based off of like the Genius Act, which was signed into law, and the Clarity Act, which is mostly done, although they're fighting over a few points, right? Until it actually passes, like the legislation, something that may change in there could change this. But I'm sure that it would be like, small changes, not like a total overhaul, right? But, until Congress actually passes that. But it's great that they have guidance and that they're going off of what's currently on the table and asking Congress to, say, oh, well, hopefully you follow this. But then again, though, the SEC doesn't make our laws, Congress does, right? So.
Yeah.
Abdi, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like when I saw the announcement a couple weeks ago, I was pretty stoked, to be honest with you, because of my infrastructure with the Wandering Footprint, having NFTs as memberships and having having a meme token and having a, potential utility token, having a work trade token, have a giveaway token, like giving token. Some of the concerns that had been brought up to me with, you buy a membership and I'm going to give you tokens might put me into the securities situation. And so I've been sort of trying to navigate the wording because it's not necessarily that it's a security, because it's a membership and it's not, investment in this gives you an investment in this. But it's the wording that gets you all, this is how they always get you. They get you with the wording. So I'm pretty stoked about having it on paper now too, not just the verbal announcement with a little bit of nod to what's going to happen, to actually be presenting, sharing what the document says. I think it's going to be really, really helpful. And you got to know that you're playing a game, and you got to learn the rules so that you can win at the game, pawn to queen. So I'm excited about this conversation, and I'm excited about how it applies to what I'm trying to create in the world.
And you were front of mind when I saw this, and I read this document, and I'm like, this is what we need to talk about on Digital Ladies, because it's not just you, it's so many of our friends and our people that have projects where this question comes up again and again. why I am very optimistic about this is I do believe that it is real structure provided by the SEC and the CFTC together that is isolating like what is what and letting you know how they're looking at it. And like you said, it's on paper, it's documented, and this is giving a clear overview and direction for those that are creating the legislation to have an understanding about what they're legislating, how they can enforce and write laws and that sort of thing. So I think it's incredibly important. And we have to understand too that all of these businesses and things that we create, there are certain things that do fall under existing SEC rules and existing CFTC rules. And with crypto, it's kind of been out there going, which does it fall under? You had the fighting over that kind of stuff and who wanted to take control. Ultimately, SEC wanted the main control initially. And, with this
to quote Opti, though, this has been a question for 10 years. Right?
We've been operating with unclear rules. Even when they did bring something out in 2019, it still was kind of like, well, what does this all mean? And so I am excited. This does supersede the 2019. So this is it. I did post it in the chat for those of you who want to take a look at it for yourself, the actual SEC crypto guidance that they worked along with the CFTC on. So the other thing I want to say is as we're going through this, we're going to be reading the text directly from that and kind of give you the categories and that sort of thing. And then we'll proceed on to why this is important, and then the all-important questions that you need to ask to discover what your project falls under. So I'm going to start us out. The initial text, the guidance identifies 5 categories of crypto assets: digital commodities, digital collectibles, digital tools, stable coins, and digital securities. It explains that digital commodities, digital collectibles, and digital tools are not themselves securities, but may be offered and sold subject to an investment contract, which is a security. Stable coins may or may not be security, depending on their characteristics, and digital securities are just that, securities. The guidance clarifies that given the dynamic nature of crypto markets, there may be crypto assets that do not fall within any of these 5 categories, and crypto assets that fall within more than one category. So basically, in a nutshell, the new SEC guidance creates a simple 5-bucket system for classifying crypto assets. 3 categories: digital commodities, collectibles, and tools, are generally not considered securities on their own, while stablecoins, depending on their details, and digital securities are clearly regulated as securities. And the SEC notes that crypto can be messy. Some assets might not fit neatly or might fit in more than one category. So I'm going to start us off with digital commodities. And this is the exact text that they give. The guidance indicates that a digital commodity is a crypto asset that is intrinsically linked to and derives value from the programmatic operation of a crypto system that is functional, as well as supply and demand dynamics, rather than from the expectation of profits from the essential managerial efforts of others. Digital commodities do not have intrinsic economic properties or rights, such as generating a passive yield or conveying rights to the profits or assets of a business enterprise. The guidance identifies certain crypto assets that fall within this category, including Bitcoin, Ether, XRP, and Solana. Because digital commodities do not derive their value from the managerial efforts of others, the guidance explains they are not themselves investment contracts. And so an example of that is a digital commodity is something like Bitcoin or Ether, whose value comes from the network itself, working to supply the demand, the code running, not from a team promising to build or manage it for profit. And so Bitcoin, Ether, XRP, and Solana. Those are the examples given of a digital commodity. Any questions, comments on that one?
XRP
Not,
is not a
I'm sorry,
security.
go ahead. I love that shirt.
Let's go, Lady
Kristin,
K.
let's go. She came like guns a blazing.
You
Listen,
want you
XRP
want
is
to
not a
read? You want to
security.
read what it says so everybody knows if they can't see it?
Oh, it says XRP is not a security. Amy said, I love this shirt. I think Amy saw it.
That's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, we've all been kind of clear on that one, right? Digital commodities, that was kind of easier.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting that it's, it's being defined as a commodity. And, shout out Linda P. Jones, who talked about this like 4 years ago, that she thought that XRP should be considered a commodity. And I think it's also really interesting how it's defining, because this is what our conversation was about, like the MyXOM token, right? In terms of like the evaluation is based on the supply and demand of the blockchain. So this is where I'm curious about the rest of the document, because each one of these has its own blockchain. So it's not defining a token on the chain, it's defining the commodity because you use that token to function on its unique blockchain. So I think that that's interesting. And yeah, great definition. Yeah, very, very helpful. And interesting those four, eh? Interesting those four.
Just wait till we get to the rest of them. So
Oh yeah.
let's go. All right, who's up?
It's me. I'm going to start with the digital collectibles. Under the guidance, a digital collectible is a crypto asset that is designed to be collected and or used and may represent or convey rights to artwork, music, videos, trading cards, in-game items, or digital representations or references to internet memes, characters, current events, or trends, among other things. This category includes meme coins, crypto assets acquired for artistic and entertainment, social and cultural purposes, which generally lack functionality. The guidance indicates that the value of digital collectibles does not depend on the managerial efforts of others, meaning digital collectibles are not themselves investment contracts. Example: these are things like NFTs for art, music, memes, or meme coins bought for fun, culture, rather than profit from a team's work. Their value comes from collecting or cultural appeal, not from someone else's managerial efforts. So they are generally not securities. Questions? Comments?
You know, here's something I think maybe because this keeps coming up. This is kind of long, guys, but I think it's really important to read this part. The relationship between a crypto asset and an investment contract, because this is also in the bill. And while I wasn't going to read it, it's becoming more and more apparent that I probably should read this part just for as we go along. This might make it more clear for people in their minds. So if you don't mind, the relationship between a crypto asset and an investment contract, this is the direct text. While the guidance provides that certain categories of crypto assets are not themselves securities, it does clarify that non-security crypto assets can become subject to an investment contract, during which time secondary market sales of those assets constitute securities transactions. A non-security crypto asset can become subject to an investment contract. The guideline explains when an issuer offers it by inducing an investment of money in a common enterprise with representations or promises to undertake essential managerial efforts from which a purchaser would reasonably expect to derive profit. The guidance then discusses factors that determine whether a purchaser's expectations of profits is reasonable. Those factors include the source, timing, and specificity of representations and promises regarding managerial efforts, along with the channels through which such representations and promises are communicated. Under the guidance, a non-security crypto asset that is sold subject to an investment contract does not necessarily retain that status in perpetuity. I can't say it.
Perpetuity.
Rather than the guidance indicates that it's such an asset separates from an investment contract when purchasers could no longer reasonably expect the issuer's representations or promises to engage in essential managerial efforts to remain connected to the asset. In these circumstances, the crypto asset is no longer subject to the federal securities laws. A crypto asset may separate from an investment contract, the guidance explains, when an issuer has fulfilled its representations or promises to engage in essential managerial efforts, or when other circumstances make it unreasonable for purchasers to continue expecting such efforts. So basically, even if a crypto asset itself is not a security, Bitcoin or a utility token, it can temporarily become tied to a security if the issuer sells it while making strong promises about future development and profits from their work. So let me say that again. If the issuer sells it while making strong promises about future development and profits from their own work, during that period, buying and selling on the secondary market could still count as trading as a security. However, once the issuer delivers on those promises, or it becomes unrealistic to expect more from them, the asset can then separate from the investment contract. And after that point, it's no longer under the SEC securities rules. It can trade freely like a commodity.
So there's two things there. I mean, number one, like, it's very clear that, and look, XRP is the perfect example because this already went through court, right? Like, XRP in and of itself is not a security, but XRP sold with an investment contract became a security.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what it's saying. One,
The contract, to me, I feel like the contract is the security, not necessarily the asset. The contract.
I think you're right. I think that's like the most important part of it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And then the second thing though is like, it touched upon that a lot about the decentralization part, right? Because you can't just launch something and it be decentralized.
Right.
Like, you have to bring people in.
Amen.
So that no one person controls it, and then it becomes decentralized. Like, that's just how it works. And so it's kind of funny too, because I feel like XRP always had that. You're centralized because that's how it started. But like, you know, that's how you start. I mean, I'm sure Satoshi was the first one mining Bitcoin when it came out too, right? So it's saying that it could look like a security, but there's a pathway to decentralization that they can take and then move out of that security category.
Kind of like Ethereum. So that was kind of, people got really frustrated with them classifying it not as a security, but everybody was like, yeah, but you did all this ICO stuff like at the beginning, which clearly was a security, right? This is kind of explaining, and I feel like partially kind of covering their own butts with explaining how that determination come about. However, we all need this kind of determination because there are lots of different projects out there. And like you said, Lady K, you need to start somewhere, right? And so depending on which direction you go with it, whether you go venture capitalist giving you money, or, you're trying to be as decentralized as possible, or you do it still at some point could possibly be a security temporarily until you get it as decentralized as possible. And then it's no longer under that investment contract type classification or whatever, right? So I think for as long as we've been in this and we've talked about it, this does actually give some clarity. I mean, or for me, I don't know about you guys, but it's checking off, or it's connecting dots, or it's making things more clear. And I think that's what we need for us all to have a better understanding of how these things are working. So, what do we
No,
have?
you're not. We're next at the next one is the actual digital tools, if that's
Digital
where you're
tools.
going.
Isn't
All
it funny?
right.
They're like digital ladies. Right now,
I know, right?
we're talking about tools and collectibles and whatever.
Digital tools,
Let's
okay? So the guidance explains that a digital tool is a crypto asset that performs a practical function, such as a membership, ticket, credential, title instrument, or identity badge. Because the value of digital tools depends on their functional utility rather than the managerial efforts of their developers, the guidance says they are not themselves investment contracts. So the explanation, and these are utility tokens that actually do something useful. Example, access to a service, ticket, or membership. Value comes from the function it performs, not from a promoter's promises. So generally, not securities.
Let's go, Amanda.
So this is exactly where it comes in for the wandering footprint. If I decide I want to do a token that's associated with Keda's brew that allows the holder of that Keda's brew token to be able to have a discount on my products, on my real world products, that means that it is now a digital tool, and that means it is not a security.
Not a security, baby. Not a
I
security.
like it. I
Well,
like it a
and that
lot,
brings
a
up
lot.
the argument about coupons, right? Like if you
Mhm.
use, like that's what I was trying to figure out with the XOM token is like if because I from the beginning to cover my own ass, I always said there's no promises, this is just for fun, and because I didn't know where everything was going to go, so I've always said that it's on every single page, can be modified, all the things, not financial advice, all the caveats. But essentially what you just said, Keda, where the token isn't necessarily to purchase things, but the token can be used. I mean, same, but different
Like a membership.
in terms of utility, but it could be used as a discount to get something.
Or even just a membership. So say you
Yeah,
decide you want to put that out to, like say how the Wandering Footprint has nomads,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So you could have your NFTs be both the actual digital collectible
yeah.
as well as now a digital tool. So
Which
it
is,
has
it is,
two buckets,
yeah,
right?
which is
And
both. Yeah,
so
it's definitely
it's
both.
both of it. So
Yeah.
I think that this is such a great conversation to have because I think a lot of people have been trying to figure this out. How is this going to work for my business? What am I going to do? How am I going to do this? What can I
How do I
use?
present it?
What
Yeah.
exactly? How
Well,
are we
and they are in luck because
Mhm.
at the bottom of this show, we're going to give 7 questions that you can ask to evaluate and determine which bucket your project, your token, your NFT falls in.
Or
I
if
think
it's
it's,
more than one.
Yeah,
You know
it
what I
might
mean? Because
fall.
it could be
Yep.
more and yeah, it could be in more than one
I
now.
think it's interesting that, it's referred, because it did say NFT in the last one, in your
Mhm.
description. And in this one, I think it's very interesting that it even gave an example of a token being a membership, because I had originally made the nomads as a token, not as non-fungible tokens. I made them as fungible tokens. And this was always sort of my debate, the same image, tiny, versus a full image that can, each one is its own individual thing. So I just find that little box in the back of my mind that they're
Well,
describing that a token. They're not saying NFT. They're saying token. So I'm assuming it's a fungible token they're referring to here, because they referred to NFTs previously. That there are examples where people might end up using the regular fungible tokens as a membership, as just across the board, right? So, anyways, curious.
I
What's our next one?
think I I think that it doesn't. I think it's both non-fungible and fungible. I mean, really, the only difference between those two is that one's identifiable and one is not.
Yep.
So,
Isn't
and
an
then
NFT really a token anyway, Lady K? Like
It is a
Well, it's
token.
non-fungible token. It's just they said
Right.
it in the words before they used NFT. So that's
Well,
why
also, of the collectibles, what it was giving examples, right? But basically it was saying NFTs or tokens that are purchased for cultural or like art and that sort of thing. So the whole point of purchasing it was that you expect nothing of it. It's more like Beanie Babies or Pokemon. You know what I mean? Like, well, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a collectible type item, and so actually, I'm not sure it would Opties would even fall under a collectible. I mean, like the song she put out
I
would.
say, yeah, but like
Yeah.
hers are a combination of, in my opinion, when I was
Her
reading through
token is a digital tool.
collectibles and tools, those
Yeah.
two.
Yeah,
Those,
absolutely.
and when we
You,
go through the questions, we're gonna be able to narrow it down even more, I think. But I want to get through these because we got a half hour, and I want to spend more time on the questions because, guys, you're making such great points, and I think it's going to fall right into that section.
Yeah.
So
I just wanted to point out though that it didn't say all NFTs. And it
no.
specifically what the intent was
yep.
for art, culture, music, nothing of profit, no utility.
Under the
So-
digital collectibles, right? Is that what you're talking
For
about?
collectibles,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So for stable coins, the guidance defines stablecoin to mean a crypto asset. It's funny they use the word asset here. They don't use it anywhere else, right? That is designed to maintain a stable value relative to a reference asset like the US dollar. It indicates that payment stablecoins issued by permitted payment stablecoin issuers will not qualify as securities by operation of statute after the effective date of the Genius Act. Other stablecoins may represent securities depending on the facts and circumstances. The guidance explains that prior to the effective date of the Genius Act, the SEC will adhere to the views expressed in April 2025 staff guidance, which concluded that non-yielding stablecoins with certain characteristics are not securities. Example, stablecoins are crypto designed to hold a steady value, usually pegged to the US dollar. Thanks to the Genius Act passed by Congress in 2025, certain properly regulated payment stablecoins are explicitly not securities. Other stablecoins might still be treated as securities depending on how they're structured. Before the new law fully kicks in, the SEC will follow its earlier 2025 view that most non-interest paying stablecoins are not securities. This is very interesting, right? Because we had a show on them trying to take the interest away from stablecoins. And so it's looking like this guidance is pretty much saying if you earn off like holding these, like passive income or rewards or interest or yield, whatever word you want to use, then it's going to fall in the securities category. And I wonder if that's why part of the reason they didn't want to have stablecoins or interest. I don't know. It's just interesting.
I like how you're thinking about that. It's layered,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's always layered, isn't it?
That in and of itself is probably something we should dive into because while that is a short little doodad, you just stuck it with a fork and you're like, yeah, we need to dig into this one because I think you're right, Lady K. There's more to the story there for sure.
We got a new member.
Thunderbird World Media. Let's go.
So good. Let's go.
All right. And the fifth one, we got digital securities. So under the guidance, digital securities are tokenized versions of instruments enumerated in the statutory definitions of security, such as stocks and bonds. Other examples, digital versions of such instruments that are recorded on a blockchain or other form of distributed ledger technology. Digital securities are securities. The guidance explains because they have the economic characteristics of securities. In the SEC's view, recording securities on a blockchain does not change their status as securities. So that's very clear, and I think we all were expecting that part. The explanation, these are basically traditional securities like stocks or bonds, but issued or recorded on the blockchain. They are still fully treated as securities. Putting them on a blockchain doesn't remove the SEC oversight.
And that makes total sense. Total sense. No one's arguing that. No one feels like they're being affronted by saying that this is the case just because it came onto the blockchain, that it shouldn't be, it shouldn't have oversight from the SEC. It is a security. That is very true.
Amen.
So the one thing they don't address here, though, really is the yield-bearing tokens, right? The tokens tied to maybe businesses that will produce income or profit. It's very interesting how that will shape out. And you know what? Maybe there's just not enough to go off of to issue guidance for those things.
Yeah, I'm wondering too, as we go through and answer these questions, because again, that is a dive deeper type of thing. So while this is very clear on certain things, I think we'll be able to answer these questions through asking the questions, and then determining in our mind, coming to a consensus, like you're saying, Lady K, people that are earning, they're putting it into a liquidity pool generally and earning money off of them. But if they're simply earning because the price goes up of a certain token or meme or collectible or whatever, that's not a security, right? So it's really the way that things are set up and the way that people are advertising their products and projects. That is key, I think, in determining whether something is a security or not under these guidelines. So, but in a nutshell, the SEC now uses this clean 5-bucket system instead of the old vague Howey test only approach. The 3 buckets, commodities, collectibles, and tools, are presumed not securities, while stablecoins get special treatment under the new Genius Act, and only digital securities are automatically securities, which, that's pretty self-explanatory of whether or not something is a security. I did want to share this one handy dandy little doodad that I came up with. Hopefully you guys can see this, but if I can try to share it in the after space, I'll share it. But it's just a nice kind of summary of the taxonomy in plain English at a glance, the category, what it is it a security by itself, real world example, and then a key test for value. And so you guys can kind of take a look at that and see if that's something that makes sense to you. But I thought I would go ahead and share that as well. And so now the fun part, and we'll also note that the security notes that some assets might fit into more than one category or none at all. It's facts and circumstances, not rigid. So the next little quick blurb is the direct impact of this new March 2026 guidance. And as we said, this guidance was issued on March 17th of 2026. It was joined by the CFTC, and it does replace that confusing 2019 staff guidance. And so its direct practical efforts are clarity for secondary market trading, because most tokens and NFTs that fit the first 3 categories can now trade freely on exchanges without being treated as unregistered security, which I would think is a huge relief for liquidity and exchanges. And then the subject to separate from pathway. So Even if you originally sold your token early with promises of development, once you deliver on that promise or it becomes unreasonable for you to expect more, the assets then separates and it exits the SEC jurisdiction, and it gives projects a more clear off ramp for that. Does anyone else want to take any of the other
Sure.
uh,
Sure, absolutely. Reduced enforcement risk. Under the second Trump administration's less interventionist SEC Chair Paul Atkins, this is a strong signal that the agency is moving towards innovation friendly rules instead of broad crackdowns. And I think that is true. I think that they really did lead by, in enforcement as opposed to really trying to have some guidance. So I think this is really important, as well as helps Congress directly feeds into pending market structure legislation that wants to draw a bright line between SEC securities and CFTC commodities oversight. So I
Then,
think that this is really important.
absolutely.
yeah. Then we have stablecoin certainty. Compliant payment stablecoins are now explicitly not securities under the Genius Act. Overall market effect. Projects that are truly decentralized, utility focused, or cultural now have a much safer path to launch and trade without fearing SEC lawsuits over investment contract status. In short, it lowers regulatory uncertainty, especially for non security tokens, and makes it easier for legitimate projects to operate and raise capital.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is something we've all been like, if you're just a digital asset crypto investor, right? And your only price go up, and like people that are building on the blockchain, it's not even on your radar. This probably means not much to you. You're just like, whatever, I don't know. But I will beg to differ that this is very important, because the things that you're investing your money and efforts into, it does matter whether they're a security or not, or if they're following the rules or not. And for those of us who have been here for a while, we're supporting the builders in this space, the early adopters. This type of clarity has been much needed to cut out the confusion and chaos that's been in this space for quite some time. And I really appreciate it. So, without further ado, uh, we've created a list of questions, specific group of questions that will help you classify whether your token or NFT project is a security or not. Um, and so we're asking you to run your project through these 7 questions. The answers that you say to yourself will point you clearly to one or more of the 5 categories and tell you whether it can separate from securities status. And so the very first question is value source. Does the asset does the asset's value come mainly from A, the functioning blockchain network itself, plus supply and demand, B, cultural, fun, collectible appeal, C, real world utility function it performs, D, does it have a fixed peg to USD? Or E, traditional economic rights like dividend ownership and profits? So that's question number one that you want to ask yourself. And I also want to say I'm going to post this probably in the after space, so that you guys can like save it and all of that. And I'll try to figure out a way to share this list with you also so that people can have it. So yeah,
I
question.
think that's a very interesting question. You knew I was going to do it too.
I knew you were going
You
to
knew
do it.
I was going to say something
You
about
have
that.
to.
Of course. When it says, because I think that a coin can be multiple parts of this particular question. You know what I mean? Does assets value come mainly from the functioning blockchain network itself? It depends. Is it the native coin? If it's the native coin, yeah, it is going to catch it from there. But actually, depending on what that blockchain does, right, it can also glean more value from what's being built on it as well. Not to mention just the functionality of it, because if that blockchain does one specific thing, then there's another value that's associated with it. So I think that that can go a bunch of different ways, and I think that it's really important for us to look at these questions and really see if what you're actually talking about does fall into these particular parts of this particular question, because I think this is a great question, by the way.
Absolutely. I think I'm supposed to read the second one.
Yes, you are.
All right. The second number two question, lucky number two. Promises made at sale. Did you or the issuer make specific representations or promises about future managerial efforts, development, or profits that buyers would reasonably rely on? And
All the
again,
questions that would make it an actual security.
right. I mean, and like you say, promises about future managerial efforts, right?
Mm.
That's different than a promise of like you shouldn't be making promises basically, but if you're promising that you're going to manage this and it's going to go up in value and all of that, you're probably teetering on some security, right?
Teetering?
You kind of
You're
teetering on.
you're giving it some grace if you're saying that you're teetering.
But doesn't it have to have an investment contract tied in with that too? If we're talking about Howie.
I mean, right?
True, but if it's a situation where you are talking about a value that's being associated with it, um, I don't know if that actual contract can be implied by it, and that's where it gets murky. You know what I mean? Because I think that's where the issue was with XRP, and that's the reason why it was intrinsically said to not be a contract, because that was not said. Okay, if you buy this token, you're going to get this return. That wasn't said. It was like people just came and bought it because they already knew it was going to do whatever it was going to do. Regardless of whether or not it was said or not, it wasn't intrinsically said, okay, if you buy this token and it does this, you'll get this return. See, that's the difference. I feel like I could be wrong.
I don't think it was about the mark. I mean, I don't think like it was fully about the marketing, right? Because
Mhm.
a lot of those sales that Ripple were hit on were
Mhm.
for ODL. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was for a business reason, but it had a contract. It was sold by the company. You know what I mean?
Because
Like,
that was when MoneyGram was involved, right? Because they actually had contracts that were associated with MoneyGram, and they were saying, okay, well, if you use this, it's going to do this, which means you'll get this return. So then that in itself is the actual contract that they actually did litigate against, and that was what they won at that time.
I'm pretty sure MoneyGram pulled out as soon as the lawsuit dropped.
I think
They
you're right.
were
But there was a lawsuit before that.
Which lawsuit?
There was a lawsuit that was before the actual court case that came from the SEC, because they were there. I think the CFTC actually did sue them at one point because of
No,
something.
no. They don't even have policing power like that. Are you talking about FinCEN?
Yes.
And then FinCEN said it was they settled. There was no lawsuit. They settled.
Right. Right.
But FinCEN classified it as a currency.
Currency.
Yeah.
Which is still a commodity.
I think it should be a currency, classified as a currency myself.
I agree, because if that's, I mean, because to be honest with you, that's how it's moving. That's what it's doing. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, if it's operating as, this is the bridge token and they have that DEX that's actually changing fiat into whatever the currency is that it's being exchanged against, that would make it some type of an actual currency as opposed to it being a contract, I would think.
At the end of the day, that
At
is
the end
why
of the
we
day.
need to be paying attention, giving attention, asking the questions. And question number 3 is current decentralization. You need to ask yourself, has the issuer fulfilled all key promises Is the network now functional without ongoing centralized control or intervention? If it is, you might be a security.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
All right, we got three more, four more, whatever.
Four more.
Four more, and then we're on wrap up. We're doing good
In
on time.
5 minutes,
We're doing
1 minute
we're doing
each one.
we're doing good. All right, so I'm going to read the next one. Intrinsic rights. Does holding the token give passive yield, profit sharing, or ownership rights in a business? If yes, likely digital security or still subject to an investment contract. And then 5, intended use. Is it primarily for art, memes, entertainment, collectible, access, membership, ticketing, a tool, payments, a stablecoin, or pure network currency commodity?
All right. We also have marketing and white paper. Does the marketing focus on utility, culture, or network growth, or on expected profits from the team's work? And 7 is stablecoin specific. Is it designed to maintain a stable peg and allow the redemption for a fixed amount of fiat? If yes, and compliant with the Genius Act, not a security.
So, guys, these questions all were derived directly from the guidance definitions and the factors it uses to determine whether value comes from managerial efforts, the Howey test, or from the asset's own functionality, network, culture, or utility. And so, just a little quick refresher on how to use them. Answer these questions honestly based on your project's current state, not just your launch plans, on your current state that you're at right now. Most projects will lean towards digital commodities or digital collectibles or digital tools. These are generally not securities once separated. But if you answer and it points heavily to question E or E in question 1, or strong profit promises like in questions 2 and 6, it may still be tied to an investment contract and fall into a digital security. So, and just remember that hybrids are possible. The guidance acknowledges that assets can overlap categories. And so I will definitely post these questions for everybody to kind of overview. And maybe I'll even post our overall presentation here, our show notes, for you to kind of look through. I did post in the chat the link to the SEC crypto issuance that we read from, which I think everyone should kind of take a look at. But if you want more of like a summary or just some of the things that we talked about, we could probably post that as well. And I hope that you guys join us in the after space. I posted the link, but we got 7 minutes or like maybe 5 minutes left. I would love to chop it up and your thoughts on all of this stuff. Opti, I wonder, did this kind of help you feel a little bit more comfortable even knowing that there's questions to ask that could help guide you into deciding and determining what your actual project falls under?
Yeah, it's as clear as mud. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, what I find so fascinating about this journey is like I'm so transparent. So I've always thought that like being upfront with like my goals and my hopes, around where the wandering footprint goes and, how I want the pools to go and things like that. I always thought that was the way. And what I've realized is that's not the way, you shouldn't tell people that you hope to be profitable and, give back to your community. You don't really want to see things like that, and so that's a really interesting thing. I think as a private citizen, it becomes a little bit different, if you have your business out there. And I think that it's super interesting going way back to our original conversations, you and me, Melissa, around, where we want to go with the token, that ultimately once it becomes decentralized. I think for me, that was the key of this whole conversation, is that once you've dispersed it, where it's not, and that's like the blue umbrella token, like even though I have 20% of it, the original dispersal was 90% was given to 16 wallets, you know? And so ultimately, I think that no matter what I choose to do with the blue umbrella token, that's where, you know, the shift, and that its initial distribution was based on that. So, I mean, as clear as mud. But yes, glad there's questions, and yes, glad we had this conversation. And I hope it helps people in the future as they choose to grow. And I mean, I can't wait for the after space because I got some extra questions. But we only got 3 minutes, so.
Well, and I would say this to you. This doing an hour show on this and talking about it and you're just getting hit with it right away, that's different than sitting down in a quiet room and reading it and thinking about it and answering the questions. And I really do believe that once you do, you're going to have a better idea of where you fall. You know, that's just my opinion, and for most projects. But like Lady K said, there's some things that we still need to kind of dive in, stick a fork in, and figure out. But yeah,
this was supposed to be a market structure, and this is sort of a market structure, right? This is like, what is a commodity? What is a collectible? What is a stable coin? You know what I mean? Now, the hybrids, the ones like Opti or other, you know, wonderful, lovely projects I love, I don't think there's clear guidance for them, because I don't think there's guidance yet. I don't think they've decided yet how they're going to deal with those. You know what I mean? Because like they were very clear. Securities were what securities already are, like ownership rights and whatnot. You know what I mean? So I think more guidance will come on those things for sure.
And just evolution. I think we're in the, you know, I think this goes back to last week's argument where is it better to have the basics so then you can modify from here, or not have it at all?
I agree with that. I think it's just a matter of right now we're just trying to find the lay of the land. And I think we're trying to find the rules of the road on that lay of the land. And for so long, it's been held back, whether it's for just more time for people to accumulate, whether it's more time for them to really delve deep into this and really say, okay, these are the things that we can say would be really great for it, or if it was on somebody else's timeline that has a little bit more power than we do to be able to control that. And that can be a very also, you know, normal thing where they may have already had this framework in place, it had already been worked out, but because of different things, it's, you know, been held back for whatever reason. It's not the right time. It's not enough money been made, or enough money that's been saved by the, you know, institutions that are coming into the blockchain, or we haven't had enough time to buy enough, you know. So there's a whole lot of different aspects of it I feel like are at play. And I think that we're just, you know, kind of like in the cut, like having to say, all right, well, we just rocking with whatever they're going to do. And whenever they decide what they're going to do, we'll be all right, because we've been working on it for this long. So I think there's just a lot to it. And it depends on where you stand, how you feel, what skin in the game you have. Because I think that when you do have the skin in the game, I think that's important too.
Well, and skin of the game is taking a look at this issuance and reading it and really breaking it down. You might have to break it down into smaller pieces and really look at the wording that's used, because I think when you look at the wording that's used, that's a helpful tool. And a lot of times we read things real quickly, and based on what we already think it means, it kind of shadows our judgment and our interpretation of things. And so I know I'm going to take another look at it and another look at it and another look at it and try to apply it to projects of people that I know and see if I can figure it out. But I hope everybody joins us in the after space at 10:10. I posted the link in the space. We love you guys. We will see you back here next week. Digital Ladies Unscripted, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Monday night. Thank you, ladies. This has been a fantastic conversation. Have a good night.
Digital ladies breaking the chain, rising in crypto, we're changing the game. Crypto frontier.